with some very sad news over the weekend. Lute Olson passing, and then on Monday, John Thompson, two iconic figures in our game. If you could just reflect on the impact on both Lute and Big John on the game and on your own career. If we start with you, John.
Well, Coach Thompson, I made a statement today. I remember being in a gym recruiting, and he walked in, and the whole gym stood up and gave him a standing ovation. And so I slipped out the back and just kind of left like this. I'm wasting my time. He also, I can remember the game against BC because I was in the Big East at the time, I believe, where he just looked at this new rule, which was the test scores that we were taking away scholarships, and he looked and knew what kind of impact it would have on minority athletes and said, I'm not coaching, I'm out. And I believe the other coaches joined him in that, which brought about change. But think of the courage that he had to speak truth to power and then put his career on the line to say, this is wrong and I'm not going to stand for it. You know, Lute was out west and left, again, showed us you look at jobs not for where they are, where you think they can go. Left Iowa when he had it rolling and went to Arizona where they won 3 games, and everybody's like, what is this guy doing? But he saw something there that no one else saw. Unbelievable recruiter. But more than that, would bring teams together. Both of them mold young people. Both of them were more than just basketball coaches. So
I like what John said, two opposite ends of the spectrum as far as how they got it done. You know, the three of us are all jerks, so it's easy. We're on the same spectrum, but those two guys were on, one was on Mars and one was on Pluto, you know. I mean, it was completely different ways, and they both got it done, which proves that a lot of ways to skin a cat.
The two things that I remember as a young head coach, and these guys can probably attest to this, it's not always the wins and the things that happen on the floor, was John Thompson. I remember probably my first or second year going to a Final Four, and you guys remember this. He's always sitting in the coach's lobby, right in the center, and him calling my name out in front of all these people and having me come over and sit with him. And he talked to me for 15 minutes. And, I mean, I couldn't believe that this guy knew who I was. And the other thing that Lute did for me that I couldn't believe was on the Nike trips and stuff, he always just accepted me and put me in his golf group when I didn't really know anybody and was really unsure of myself starting out and coaching, and just treated me as an equal. And, I mean, the dude was just the epitome of class.
Isn't it something that we remember when we were young, how the older guys treated us? Like, that always impacted me. And
Yeah.
you're right, both of those guys, you know, were like, you know, that I can go back and say, this guy, I don't even know how he knew me, but he always treated me with respect. And why, you know, so those two were those kind of guys that, and I'll say this, if you walked in the gym and you're recruiting somebody and they were in there, oh, you left.
No shot.
Yeah, you knew.
We know there's going to be an NCAA tournament in 2021. We hope it's the same dates. If there needs to be a bubble, they can do that. So we're not worried about the tournament. It's going to happen. You can book it. Question is the regular season. The Division I Council is going to make a decision on September 16th. Is it November 10th? Is it November 25th? Is it maybe December 5th? So let's first deal with the date, and then how you could see maybe the non-conference or conference schedule playing out in this, you know, unprecedented time. What would you like to see in terms of when it starts, Mark?
Well, I would just love to see it start in that window that all of us have across college basketball, from either, you know, right around Thanksgiving or a little before or a little after, because having been through that this summer with my own team, where we were literally all by ourselves on campus. I mean, it dawned on me that it's never going to get any safer or any better, to try to keep your team, away from COVID as best you can, which is impossible. But we were essentially in our own, and I hate to use the term bubble because it's different, but we were in our own bubble, and we could we're able to practice and eat and train and do all that stuff. Then if you add, if Cal's doing the same thing and Tom's doing the same thing, we're all chartering. I mean, it just makes the scenario as safe as you could outside of the NBA and NASA. It's probably about as safe as you could ever hope for walking around in this day and age. And I think the other thing that I noticed when you started talking to other coaches, just how willing they were to, to kind of look at this thing differently and maybe we're all very protective of our schedules, and it's a pain in the rear to try to schedule people. But I think everybody was so open-minded and so like, hey, we could do this and we could just swap and we, play instead of playing those one-off games, we could do a round robin with all 4 teams or all 8 teams or heck, even 16 teams. And then I really think there's a great window for college basketball also, just to, with the void that's left by so many of the other sports out there, we could really have an impact. And then lastly, I don't think, and Tom and hopefully Cal can speak to this, just how important, and you can, Andy, college basketball is to the whole enterprise. I mean, it is the driver, men's college basketball, for the entire system. And it's imperative that we do everything we can to, to have some sort of season, because our players want to have a season. They want to play, and just talking to all my guys, I had many that were contemplating the draft and they came back because they want to play. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to try to somehow find a way to help them with that.
There's probably going to be no NBA, no NHL, no bowl games. So those TV windows in December are theirs for our sport to take. And then to your other point, yeah, there has to be, with most of these leagues not playing football, not having the tournament last spring, there has to be men's college basketball to help fund all these other sports that are, basically right now hanging by a thread or have already been cut. There's people being furloughed, layoffs. I mean, this needs to happen. Tom, what do you think in terms of a starting date and a potential schedule?
Well, I'm right with Mark. I think all 3 of us have talked, and we're on a committee that discusses this every week. And, I think we have to play, and you bring up all the monetary reasons, but there are almost health reasons. My wife wants us to play. I think she's sick of me, but I think the players, we forget what it's like to be 20 and not get to do those things that they normally do. And that's why mental health has been a big part of what we're saying. We think we need more access. We need to help our players. This isn't about trying to get better and win games. And I think all of us agree we play each other 3-4 times, and we normally would never want to do that. But we just want to play good competition, give our kids as normal of a college year as they can have, and not worry about our records for one time in our life. Just worry about the betterment of the game and really our country. I mean, you see what happens when sports goes back on. And I think on our committee, it was talked about, no matter when we played the NCAA tournament, you forget how big it is when you're inside it. You're looking from the outsider, you step back and you say, wow, they could play that on Sunday morning, they could play it at 4 in the morning, and there'd be people watching. So I think, somewhere in that November, Thanksgiving time, I do like the fact, call it bubble or pod, that we're going to be here alone. We can get a lot done. We're a lot safer here. During the year, it's a little more difficult. We got to worry about the athletic bubble, but we can control that. I mean, our gyms, our weight rooms, I think for all of us, they're cleaner than an operating room, for God's sakes. But their personal bubbles are what we've got to convince them. And the NBA has led the way on that. And it's going to be interesting to see what the NFL does. But I feel like we really jumped on it. And all of us have been involved with a committee that's really gotten on top of it. And I feel good that we're going to play. I feel good there's not going to be a lot of setbacks. And yet the players got to do their job too. We got to hold them accountable to doing their job.
Just to kind of tie everything to, we've been on committees, and the 3 of us have talked. One, none of us on this call want any sports cut. We don't want any sports cut. We don't want any coaches losing their jobs or kids not. We want that, which means we got to play. The second piece of it is, if our kids could vote, college basketball players, it would be 98% to 2, and those 2% were walk-ons or guys that were mad they're not playing. Everyone, they all want to play. If you talk to coaches, they want to play. Now it becomes, how do we do it safely? Well, we're talking about pods. The way has been shown by the WNBA and the NBA. So we have a path. Now with testing, before you leave your campus, you're tested. When you arrive, before you play a game, you're tested. If there are teams there and one of them has a player test positive, they're just out of it. You never even stepped on the court, and whoever's left keeps playing. We may not have, there is not going to be competitive equity. Stop it. Stop it. We may not play as many games as Tom and Mark's teams. That's too bad. Maybe we got sick. Maybe one of my guys had to go see his girlfriend at a party and now infected us all. We're out 2 weeks. It's too bad. We're out. So that has to be out there. Quit saying we all got to do this and all got to do that. It ain't going to be that this year. The committee has a tough choice now, or a tough job, because if we all just stay in leagues, how do you do it? You know what, my team wants to play outside the league too. I'm saying I think it's important, 2 things. One, to really see who's who. You got to play outside your own league, okay? And whether it's what Tom said, if we go to the Challenge or the CBS or whoever it is, well, you play a round robin. But I'm telling you, and Mark and I have talked about this, we have to make sure that we're taking care of some of the smaller schools that are missing out on bye games that could end their program. Those are scholarships for kids. My son goes to Detroit. So I don't want that program to say, hey, okay, we're done. We can't operate. How we do that, the 3 of us have talked. How do we come up with something? Is it push it forward? Is it give them a percentage by coming in all together and we'll play it together and you get something to where they have something where they can be involved in this? I don't have the answer to all that, but I think that's one of the things we got to talk about. Non-conference, all of our players want non-conference games, even though I know it'll be safer just within our league, but I don't think it's fair.